So glad you could join me today for PJ's Storytime. I have another great tale I'd like to share with you. Once upon a time, near a great forest, there lived a poor woodcutter with his wife. He had 2 children. The boy was called Hansel and the girl was called Gretel. There had always been little enough in the cottage to live on, but when a famine came to the land, the woodcutter could not even get bread for his family. One night he was so full of worry that he could not sleep, and as he tossed about in bed, he groaned to his wife, "How are we to feed our poor children when we have nothing even for ourselves? Whatever is to become of us?" "I'll tell you what to do, husband," replied his wife. "Early tomorrow morning we will take the children deep into the great forest. There we will build a fire for them, give them each a piece of bread, and then we will go on to our work and leave them alone. They will not be able to find their way home, and then we will be rid of them." "No, wife," said the woodcutter, "I won't do that. How could I leave Hansel and Gretel alone in the forest? The wild beasts would soon come and eat them up." "Fool!" exclaimed the woman. "Then all 4 of us must die of hunger. You may just as well go now and make our coffins." She nagged and nagged him until he said he would do as she wished. Even when doing so, he said, "Oh, but I am sorry for my poor children." Now Hansel and Gretel had been unable to sleep because they were too hungry, and so they had heard all this talk between the father and his wife. "Now all is over with us," wept Gretel bitterly. "No, no," Hansel assured her. "Don't fret so, Gretel. I will surely find some way out of our trouble." They waited until their father and stepmother fell asleep. Then Hansel got out of bed, slipped on his little coat, opened the back door quietly, and stole out of doors. The moon was shining so brightly that the little white pebbles that lay thick in front of the cottage glittered like bits of silver. Hansel bent down and filled one pocket after another with them. Then he crept silently back into the cottage, and as he lay down to sleep, he whispered to his sister, "Go to sleep, little sister, for surely God will not forsake us." The woman did not wait the next morning until the sun was up to come to the children's bedside, saying, "Get up, lazy things. We are all going to the forest to fetch wood." And handing each one a little piece of bread, she added, "There is your dinner. Don't eat it before noon, or you'll get nothing more than that." Gretel put the bread under her apron, for Hansel had the white stones in his pocket, and the 4 of them set out into the forest. When they had been walking a short time, Hansel stopped, turned and looked back at the cottage. This he did again and again. Finally his father saw him and said, "Hansel, why are you lagging behind so? And why do you keep looking at the path you have just traveled? Take care or you'll stumble and fall." "Oh, father," replied Hansel, "I am looking back at my little white kitten. It is sitting on the roof of the cottage and waving me a farewell." "Fool!" impatiently exclaimed their stepmother. "That isn't your kitten at all. It's the morning sun shining on the chimney." But Hansel had not been looking back at the cat at all. He had been dropping the white pebbles out of his pocket on the path through the forest. When they reached the middle of the forest, their father said, "Children, hurry and fetch brushwood. I'll build a fire so you won't be cold." Hansel and Gretel gathered a great heap until the pile was like a small hill. As the flames leaped high above it, the stepmother said, "Now lie down and rest near the fire, while your father and I go to our work, cutting down wood. When we have finished, we will come back and get you." Hansel and Gretel sat down beside the fire, and when noon came, they ate their bread. At last they fell asleep. It was the middle of the night when they woke up. Gretel began to cry, but Hansel comforted her. "When the moon rises, we will be able to find our way back home." And when the full moon had risen, they followed the white pebbles which shone like bright silver coins in the moonlight. By break of day, they came to their father's house. The woman answered their knock and said, "You naughty children, we thought you were never coming back at all." But the father was glad, for it had made him very sad to leave his children in the forest. Not long after this, there was another great famine in the land, and the two children heard their stepmother say to their father in the night, "We have only a half loaf of bread left. The children must go. This time we will lead them further into the woods." And she nagged and nagged him until he agreed with her. The children were awake and had heard the plan. So after their father and stepmother were sound asleep, Hansel got up to pick up pebbles again. But this time the stepmother had locked the door, and Hansel could not get out. He went back to his sister and said, "Do not cry, Gretel. Go to sleep. The good God will surely help us." Early the next morning, their stepmother came and gave each of them a bit of bread, smaller than before. On the way to the forest, Hansel crumbled his bread in his pocket and often threw a morsel on the ground. At last, their father asked, "Hansel, why do you stop so often and look around?" "I am looking at the little pigeon sitting on the roof and wanting to say goodbye to me." "Silly goose," exclaimed the stepmother. "That is the morning sun shining on the chimney." They led the children deep into the forest, made a great fire, and then the stepmother said, "Sit here, and when you are tired, you may sleep a little. When our wood is cut, we will come back and get you." Noon came, and Gretel shared her little piece of bread with Hansel, and then they fell asleep. When they woke up, it was nighttime, and Gretel wept with fright. Hansel comforted her, saying, "Gretel, when the moon rises, we shall see the crumbs I scattered on the ground, and we will find our way home." When the moon rose, they set out, but the birds of the forest had picked up and eaten all of the crumbs. They walked all that night and all the following day, but did not get out of the forest. When they were so tired they could walk no more, they lay down and fell asleep under a tree. 3 days later, they saw a beautiful snow-white bird. They followed it until they reached a little house built of bread and covered with cakes and windows of clear sugar. "I will eat the roof, and you can eat some of the windows," said Hansel. Then a soft voice from the little house cried, "Nibble, nibble, gnaw. Who is nibbling at my little house?" The children answered, "The wind, the wind, the wind of heaven," and went on eating. The door opened, and out crept a very old woman on crutches. "Oh, you dear children, who has brought you here? Do come in and stay with me." And she led them into the little house. She gave them milk and pancakes with sugar, apples and nuts too. Then she put them to bed in a nice, clean bed. The old woman was only pretending to be kind. In truth, she was a wicked witch, and early the next morning, when she saw the children still sleeping, she muttered, "They will make a dainty mouthful." Then she grabbed Hansel and locked him in the stable. Early morning, the witch crept to the stable and cried, "Hansel, stretch out your finger that I may feel if you soon will be fat enough to eat." Hansel, however, stretched out a chicken bone to her, and the old witch, having poor eyesight, wondered why he did not grow fat. When 4 weeks had gone by, she could wait no longer. "Come, Gretel," she cried, "bring in some water. Let Hansel be thin or fat. Tomorrow I will cook him." "Dear God, help us," cried Gretel, as she obeyed. "Keep your nose to yourself," commanded the old witch. "All that won't help you." Early the next morning, Gretel had to go out and hang up the kettle and light the fire. "We will bake first," said the old witch. "I have heated the oven, and the dough is ready." She pushed poor Gretel to the oven and said, "Creep in and see if it is hot enough." But Gretel knew what she meant to do, so she said, "How do you get in?" "Silly goose! The door is big enough. Just look, I can get in myself." And she crept in. Gretel gave her a push that sent her far back into it and shut the iron door tight. Then Gretel ran quickly as lightning to the stable and cried, "Hansel, Hansel, we are free! The old witch is dead." And Hansel sprang out like a bird from his cage when the door was opened. And now, as they had no reason to fear, they went into the witch's house. In every corner stood chests, all full of jewels and pearls. "These are far better than pebbles," said Hansel as he filled his pockets, and Gretel filled her apron too. "Now we will go away and get out of the witch's forest." They walked for hours and came at last to a great lake. "We cannot get across," said Hansel. "Look, Gretel, there isn't a bridge." "And no ferry boat either," answered Gretel. "But I see a white duck swimming there. If I ask, she will help us over." Then Gretel cried, "Little duck, little duck, do you see Hansel and Gretel are waiting for you? There isn't a bridge in sight. Please take us across on your back, so white." The duck came to them, and Hansel told Gretel to get on the duck's back and sit by his side. "Oh no," replied Gretel, "we will be too heavy for the little duck. She will take you across and then come back for me." When they were safely over, they saw their father's house in the distance. Then they began to run and rushed into the house, throwing themselves into his arms. How glad he was, for he had not had one happy hour since he had left his children in the deep forest. Their stepmother, however, had died. Gretel emptied her apron until pearls and precious jewels rolled around the room, while Hansel tossed one handful after another out of his pockets to do his share. Then the three of them, father, Hansel, and Gretel, lived happily ever after. The end.